Good morning, students. Hope you are doing well, you are safe, you are healthy, and your family is also safe and healthy. Also, I assume that you are watching the online videos posted on the channel Department of Anatomy YouTube channel, and as per the instructions given, you are studying the topics as per the schedule. I understand that it is difficult to study anatomy, especially gross anatomy or osteology, from the videos or online learning. But for the time being, we have to adjust and we have to study the anatomy from the online videos only. We are trying our best to have online live classes for you, but by the time live classes start, we will continue with the online videos. So today we are going to see the deep cervical fascia. You know, the neck is a very important organ in the body, and we have started already the head, neck, and the face. In the third MBBS, in the clinical postings or in the practical examinations, you will have the short case or long case, and the case will be one of the case will be most frequently it is the midline swelling in the neck, and you will have to do the examination, take the history, do the local examination, and come to the differential diagnosis, present the case. And those midline swellings, one important aspect in the midline swelling is whether they are movable, whether they are moving with deglutition or they are moving with swallowing or not. So today we will see how the swellings are movable, which swellings are there, and all these things are somehow related to the deep fascia of the neck, that is deep cervical fascia. So if we see the neck, the side of the neck, the boundaries of the side of the neck, here you can see this is the base of the mandible, this is the mastoid process, this is the external occipital protuberance, and this is the superior nuchal line. So the side of the neck is bounded above by the base of the mandible, the line joining the angle of the mandible with the mastoid process and the superior nuchal line. This is the upper boundary of the side of the neck. Inferiorly, the neck is bounded by the clavicle in the entire extent up to the tip of the acromion and from the manubrium sternum. Anteriorly, the anterior median line bounds the side of the neck anteriorly, while posteriorly the neck is bounded by the trapezius muscle. So this is the quadrangular neck, and this quadrangular neck is divided by this muscle. This muscle is sternocleidomastoid muscle. The sternocleidomastoid muscle divides the side of the neck into two parts. This quadrangular neck is divided into anterior triangle. So this will be the anterior triangle. This is the anterior triangle, and this will be the posterior triangle. So this is the posterior triangle. So these two triangles we are going to see later on. So this neck, here we will go to the next picture. We don't want this anterior and posterior now, so we'll clear it all. And if we see the next picture, here this is the base of the mandible, this is the nuchal line, and here the trapezius muscle is there, sternocleidomastoid muscle is there, and this is the anterior margin. So here is the anterior triangle of the neck, and this is the posterior triangle of the neck. So this neck is having the deep cervical fascia. This is the deep fascia of the neck. This deep fascia of the neck is having 4 layers: the superficial fascia and then the deep fascia. This first layer of the deep fascia is called as investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. So this is the first layer, that is investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. This is the first layer, investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. The second one is the pretracheal layer. Third is the prevertebral layer. Fourth is the carotid sheath, and next is the buccopharyngeal fascia, and last one is the pharyngobasilar fascia. So all these are the layers of the deep cervical fascia. So if we see this next slide, here we can see the different layers. So this is a sagittal section through the neck, and this green color, they show the various layers of the cervical fascia. So the superficial most is the investing layer. This is the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. Then deep to that, that is pretracheal layer of the deep cervical fascia. Carotid sheath is present on either side. That side is not shown in this figure. Then this comes the prevertebral fascia. So from the base of the skull, it runs up to the 4th thoracic vertebra. This is the prevertebral fascia. It is present just in front of the vertebral column, and so this 1, 2 and 3 layers are seen in this figure. So again, these 6 layers of the deep cervical fascia we will see one by one. So first of all, the investing layer. So what is the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia? So if we want to see what is the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia, investing layer of the deep cervical fascia is like a sleeve. For example, this is the arm or hand, and then it is covered by the sleeve. So here we can show the sleeve of a shirt. So this is sleeve of a shirt covers entirely around the arm or the hand. So this is the investing layer. The investing layer invests, covers the neck completely. That's why it is called as the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. Now this investing layer of the deep cervical fascia is having attachments. It is attached around the neck. It covers the neck all around. It is attached superiorly, it is attached inferiorly, it is attached anteriorly and posteriorly. So we'll see these attachments of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. First we'll go to the superior attachment. So this figure, it shows the superior attachment of the deep cervical fascia. Before coming to this figure, we will see one more figure. This is the figure showing the superior attachment of the deep cervical fascia. So the deep cervical fascia is attached above to the base of the mandible. Here we can see it is attached to the base of the mandible. Then it is attached from the angle of the mandible to the mastoid process here, and from the mastoid process it is attached to the superior nuchal line and the external occipital protuberance. So this is the superior attachment of the deep cervical fascia. So deep cervical fascia is attached above to the base of the mandible, from the angle of the mandible to the mastoid process, and then to the superior nuchal line. Now if we see this attachment from the mastoid process to the, so this figure, it is attached to the base of the mandible, and from the angle of the mandible to the mastoid process. Again, if we see the next figure, the angle of the mandible to the mastoid process, this part is called as, gets splits. So there is one superficial layer and one deep layer. Now the deeper layer from the mastoid process, this is the mastoid process, this is the mastoid, we will mark it. So this process is the mastoid process, this is mastoid process, and this is the angle of the mandible. From the angle of the mandible to the mastoid process, there is a superficial layer running like this, and here deep there is a stylar process. So we will mark the stylar process with red color. So this is the, here deep, here is the stylar process. So the superficial layer of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia is attached from the angle of the mandible to the mastoid process, and one layer, deep layer, is attached from the mastoid process to the styloid process, here like this, and then from the styloid process to the angle of the mandible, right? The superficial layer is attached above from the mastoid process to the inferior border of the inferior margin of the zygomatic arch. This is the zygomatic arch, the inferior margin of the zygomatic arch. So this layer, which is attached to the mandible, styloid process and the zygomatic arch, it forms the superficial layer. So, and one deep layer is attached to the mastoid process, styloid process, and from styloid process to the mandible, angle of the mandible. So this is the deep layer. So again, in this figure we will see the horizontal disposition where we can understand the superficial and deep layers. So here, now see, this figure is the coronal section passing through the superior attachment. We will have to erase this. So this is the base of the mandible, base of the mandible. So our investing layer is attached above to the base of the mandible. Then here is the styloid process. Can you see this styloid process here? We will mark it again by the red color. So this is the styloid process. This is the styloid process, which is marked by red color, and the mastoid process we will mark by green color. This is the mastoid process, we have marked now by the green color. Understood? So from the mastoid process to the angle of the mandible, here it covers superficially the parotid gland. The investing layer covers parotid gland, it is called as parotid fascia. And from the styloid process to the mastoid process, one layer goes deep, and from the styloid process it comes to the angle of the mandible. So this layer becomes the stylomandibular ligament. This becomes the stylomandibular ligament. This stylomandibular ligament is pierced by the external carotid artery. This stylomandibular ligament is pierced by the external carotid artery. Understood? So the superior attachment of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia is again base of the mandible, then angle of the mandible, superficial layer covers the parotid gland up to the mastoid process. It is attached above to the zygomatic arch, and deep layer from the mastoid process to the styloid process, from the styloid process to the angle of the mandibular in the form of stylomandibular ligament, which is pierced by the external carotid artery. And then from the mastoid process it goes to the external occipital protuberance. This is the external occipital protuberance, and from the mastoid process to the external occipital protuberance, by the superior nuchal line. So this is the superior nuchal line. So these all are the superior attachments of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. So what important thing is that here the fascia splits here into two layers. One layer covers the parotid gland, it is called as parotid fascia. From styloid process to the angle of the mandible, it forms the stylomandibular ligament. Okay. So if we see the figure, the dissected part, the investing layer is attached superiorly to the mandible, then from the angle of the mandible to the mastoid process, and from the mastoid process to the external occipital protuberance and the superior nuchal line. So this is the superior attachment of the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. Got it? Same thing we can see on the bone like this. Same thing we can see on the skull. So this is the skull showing the norma occipitalis. Here is the external occipital protuberance and the superior nuchal lines. So here we can see the external occipital protuberance and the superior nuchal lines. And this is the side of the skull in which we can see the attachment will be, again we will draw the attachment now with green color. So see here, from the base of the mandible to the angle of the mandible, from the angle of the mandible to the mastoid process like this, then from the mastoid process to the superior nuchal line and the external occipital protuberance. It is the attachment of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. Only thing is that from the mastoid process, one layer goes deep to the styloid process, and from styloid process, that layer comes to the mastoid process as it comes to the mandibular as stylomandibular ligament, and this superficial layer is also attached to the inferior border of the zygomatic arch. So this is all about the superior attachment of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. Now we will come to the inferior attachment. So above it is attached to the base of the skull like this. How it is attached below? Below in this figure we can see it is attached to the clavicle. It is attached to the clavicle, from the manubrium sternum, then clavicle, then the acromion and the spine of the scapula. It is attached inferiorly. So diagrammatically, if we show the inferior attachment, it will be seen like this. Inferiorly, anteriorly it is attached to the manubrium sternum. So this is the manubrium sternum. Here this is the manubrium sternum. Then it is the clavicle. From here to here is the clavicle. So it is attached to the clavicle inferiorly. Then it is attached to the acromion. This is the acromion and the spine of the scapula. So this whole is the, from here to here is the spine of the scapula. So the spine of the scapula. Inferior attachment, now it is easy. Anteriorly, inferiorly, it is attached to the manubrium. Then little bit laterally, it is attached to the superior border of the clavicle. Then it is attached to the acromion and the spine of the scapula. Again, if we see this figure, in this figure we can see the inferior attachment, that is the spine of the scapula, acromion, clavicle and the manubrium. So here inferior attachment of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. Then coming to the anterior attachment. Anterior attachment is nothing but it is attached to its counterpart in the median plane. So again, if we see this figure, the investing layer is attached anteriorly to its counterpart, means right layer continues with the left layer in the median plane anteriorly. And what about posteriorly? Posteriorly, it is attached to the external occipital protuberance and spine of the 7th cervical vertebra and the ligamentum nuchae. Here we can see in this figure. In this figure we can see it is attached to the spine of the 7th cervical vertebra here and the ligamentum nuchae. So this is the posterior attachment of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. So these are the attachments. So investing layer of deep cervical fascia, attachments we have seen superior, inferior, anterior and posterior. Now this investing layer of deep cervical fascia, it splits to enclose two muscles, two salivary glands and two spaces. Which two muscles are enclosed by the investing layer of deep cervical fascia? As seen in this figure, it is very obvious that investing layer of deep cervical fascia splits to enclose this muscle. This is the sternocleidomastoid muscle and this is the other muscle is trapezius. So the two muscles are enclosed by the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. Here the deep cervical fascia splits, enclose the sternocleidomastoid. Here it splits and enclose the trapezius muscle. Then it splits to enclose the two salivary glands. Now again, if we see the superior attachment of the investing layer of deep cervical fascia in this figure, here we can see that here it splits from styloid process to mastoid process. Here it splits from the superficial layer called as parotid fascia and from the deep layer, and it covers the parotid gland and it stylomandibular ligament. It separates the parotid gland from the submandibular gland. So it splits to enclose the parotid gland and the submandibular gland. And it encloses two spaces. These two spaces are again supraclavicular space and this is the supraclavicular space and the suprasternal space. Two spaces it encloses. The suprasternal space, it contains few structures like this is the head of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Then here the jugular venous arch will be present. A lymph node is present and the interclavicular ligament is present in the suprasternal space. Why this is the supraclavicular space? In the supraclavicular space, there is external jugular vein, the supraclavicular nerves are present and the cutaneous vessels and lymphatics are present in the supraclavicular spaces. So it encloses two muscles, it encloses two glands and it splits to enclose two spaces. Also it forms two fascial pulleys. The investing layer, it forms the pulleys for the two muscles. One is for the tendon of the digastric. Here there is digastric muscle. This is the anterior belly of digastric muscle. This is the posterior belly of digastric muscle, and here is the tendon of the digastric muscle, where the fascial pulley of the investing layer, it changes the direction of the digastric tendon. And similarly, there is omohyoid muscle. This is the superior belly of omohyoid muscle here. This is the inferior belly of omohyoid muscle, and there is one fascial pulley over here, and this fascial pulley again is formed by the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. So investing layer of the deep cervical fascia, it forms two fascial pulleys as well. So this is all about the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. Now we will come to the next layer, that is the pretracheal layer of the deep cervical fascia. Now as the name suggests, this layer is pretracheal layer, means it is present in front of the trachea. It is present in front of the trachea. Now we will see a figure which is a which is a sagittal section. So here in this figure we can see that this is a sagittal section passing through the neck. Here this is the trachea. Can you see? This is the trachea. We will mark it. This is the trachea. Here we will draw a line in the trachea. This is trachea. Okay, these are the blue are the rings of the trachea, right? So, and our layer, pretracheal layer is here. Pretracheal layer is here. So it starts from the thyroid cartilage. It is attached above to the hyoid bone, thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage. Then it splits to enclose the thyroid gland, and inferiorly it merges with the arch of aorta. So this layer of the deep cervical fascia is present in front of the trachea. So it is called as pretracheal layer. Okay. So this pretracheal layer, if we want to have some idea, it is quadrilateral in shape. It is having 4 sides, 4 attachments. So it is like this. In this figure you can see, I will draw the outline of the pretracheal fascia. Outline will draw by which color? Will draw by dark blue color. Outline of the pretracheal layer, which is quadrilateral. So this is the outline of the, I am trying to draw the outline of the pretracheal layer. So this is the pretracheal layer. Can you see this outline of the pretracheal layer? Now this pretracheal layer, you have got the idea. We will now remove this outline. So this is the, which is shown by these green dotted lines, pretracheal layer. This pretracheal layer is present in front of the trachea. So this is a front view in the midline of the neck. This is the hyoid bone in the upper part. This is the thyroid cartilage. This is the cricoid cartilage. This is the cricoid cartilage, and this pink color is the thyroid gland. So here is the thyroid gland, and this is the arch of the aorta. Our pretracheal layer is attached above in the midline to the hyoid bone. This is the hyoid bone. Hyoid bone. This is the hyoid bone in the midline. It is attached above to the hyoid bone in the midline, the body of the hyoid bone, and then it runs downwards. Then it is attached to the oblique line. This is the oblique line on the thyroid cartilage. It is attached to the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage, and this whole black colored is the thyroid cartilage. Got it? This is the thyroid cartilage. It is labeled here thyroid cartilage. So this thyroid cartilage on the oblique line it is attached. Then it is also attached to the cricoid cartilage. This cartilage is cricoid cartilage. Below the thyroid cartilage is the cricoid cartilage. So in the pretracheal layer is attached above in the center to the hyoid bone. Then it is attached below to the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage. Below it is attached to the cricoid cartilage. Right? This is the upper attachment of the superior attachment of the pretracheal layer. Then what happens? This layer runs downwards, and here is the thyroid gland. Can you see this thyroid gland? We will again, it is a shield like gland. This is one lobe of the thyroid gland. This is the other lobe. This is the one lobe. This is the other lobe of the thyroid gland. So this is the, and this is called as isthmus. Central part of the thyroid gland is called as isthmus. So this is the thyroid gland. This thyroid gland is enclosed by the pretracheal fascia. So the fascia comes down from the cricoid cartilage, from the oblique line of thyroid cartilage, and here it splits. One layer runs anterior to the thyroid gland, one layer runs posterior to the thyroid gland, and then after coming below, it again rejoins. So in other words, this pretracheal layer, it forms the false capsule of the thyroid gland. It forms the false capsule of the thyroid gland. And now below the thyroid gland, it encloses the veins, and then it runs below and attaches to the arch of the aorta. Fibrous tissue over the arch of the aorta it attaches. So what are the attachments? Superiorly The pretracheal layer is attached to the head bone in the center, oblique lines of the thyroid cartilage, the cricoid cartilage. Then it splits in two layers. It encloses this thyroid gland, whole thyroid gland it encloses, right? Forms the false capsule of the thyroid gland, and again it forms a single layer, runs downwards below the thyroid gland and reaches the superior mediastinum, where it merges with the fibrous tissue of the arch of aorta. Superior attachment and inferior attachment we have seen. On each side, what is this? See, this is the arch of aorta. This is the common carotid artery. This is also common carotid artery. This is subclavian and subclavian, right and left subclavian arteries. So this is the carotid artery, common carotid artery. It runs through one fascial sheath. This is called as carotid sheath. Carotid sheath is nothing but the covering, fascial covering, which covers the common carotid artery, internal carotid artery and internal jugular vein. All these are present in this green colored carotid sheath. This is the carotid sheath. Here we have marked it as carotid sheath. Okay. So this is the carotid sheath. This is also carotid sheath on each side. So our pretracheal layer, it attaches laterally to the front of the carotid sheath. So all the attachments of the pretracheal layer we have seen, right? Superior, inferior on each side, and it encloses the thyroid gland. Now if we see the pre-vertebral, this is the pre-vertebral, okay, we will go to pretracheal. Pretracheal layer, superiorly hyoid bone in the median plane, oblique line of the thyroid cartilage, laterally to the cricoid cartilage, it blends with the arch of aorta, and on side passes deep to the sternocleidomastoid muscle and fuses with the front of the carotid sheath. This pretracheal layer, again we will come to this figure. This pretracheal layer, on either side, here on either side, it forms the suspensory ligament of the thyroid gland, which is called as ligament of Berry. It is attached to the cricoid cartilage. Here it is attached to the cricoid cartilage, and this attachment through the suspensory ligament or ligament of Berry, it is very important because due to this attachment, the thyroid gland is attached to the larynx, and that's why the thyroid gland, it moves with deglutition, it moves with swallowing. So if there is any swelling in the thyroid gland, that swelling of the thyroid gland, how we can identify? Ask the patient to swallow. If the swelling moves with the swallowing, then we can say that it may be the swelling of the due to the thyroid gland. Now coming to the next layer, that is the prevertebral layer. So this is the prevertebral layer. As the name suggests, this layer is present in front of the vertebral column. If we see the figure, in this figure, this layer is prevertebral fascia. We'll mark it here. This prevertebral fascia is here. So where it is? Here. This is the vertebral column. Can you see this vertebral column? In front of the vertebral column, this blue colored line, it shows the prevertebral fascia. So if we imagine the vertebral column and the prevertebral muscles are there, and in front of the covering the superficial part of the prevertebral muscles, we are having this So here, this is the posterior triangle. We have seen that this part is posterior triangle. The floor of the posterior triangle is formed by this prevertebral fascia, and deep to the prevertebral fascia there are prevertebral muscles. So this prevertebral fascia, is attached above to the base of the skull. Below it is attached to the fourth thoracic vertebra. So we'll see the figure once again. See the attachments of the prevertebral fascia. Prevertebral fascia, it covers the prevertebral muscles. It forms the floor of the posterior triangle of the neck, as we have seen. It is attached superiorly to the base of the skull, and inferiorly it is attached to the anterior longitudinal ligament and the body of the fourth thoracic vertebra, and laterally it passes deep to the trapezius muscle. So you try to understand from this figure that this is the, we'll make it more dark. Already yellow color prevertebral fascia is shown here. It is yellow colored. See, this is the prevertebral fascia shown by the yellow color here. We'll make it little dark. See here, we'll make it dark. This is the prevertebral fascia. If we see the attachments of this prevertebral fascia, it is present. It is attached superiorly to the base of the skull. Here, the base of the skull. Inferiorly, it goes to the fourth thoracic vertebra. It is the fourth thoracic vertebra, and the body of the fourth thoracic vertebra and the anterior longitudinal ligament. It is attached. So superior attachment, inferior attachment. On each side, what happens? This fascia goes deep to the trapezius muscle. On each side, superior attachment, inferior attachment, and on both sides. So again, if we see this figure here, it is forming the floor of the posterior triangle, and it is going deep to this trapezius muscle. This is the trapezius muscle. This is the trapezius muscle. So it is going deep to the trapezius muscle. So this is about the prevertebral fascia. Now next is the carotid sheath. Next layer is the carotid sheath. So we have seen already what is the carotid sheath. One, in this figure we have seen the carotid sheath. We have drawn the carotid sheath. We have seen the carotid sheath in this figure, right? So what is carotid sheath? Carotid sheath is nothing but the covering, fibrous covering, fibroalveolar covering around the common carotid artery, internal carotid artery, and the internal jugular vein. So it is contains the fibroalveolar tissue around the common carotid artery and internal carotid artery, internal jugular vein. It also encloses the vagus nerve, and anteriorly ansa cervicalis is embedded in its wall. Posteriorly, it is related to the sympathetic chain. So if you see the figure, this is the internal carotid artery, this is the common carotid artery. The common carotid artery gives a branch, external carotid artery, and then this is the internal carotid artery. This is the vagus nerve. This yellow color is the vagus nerve, and this is the internal jugular vein. So all these three structures are enclosed in a sheath, and this is called as carotid sheath. Here is the transverse section of the carotid sheath showing the common carotid artery, internal jugular vein. This is the vagus nerve. In between these two structures, little bit posteriorly, anterior wall here, ansa cervicalis, that we will see in the next chapters. What is ansa cervicalis? The two roots of ansa cervicalis, they are present in the anterior wall of the carotid sheath, while the carotid sheath, behind the carotid sheath, we can see the sympathetic trunk here. So this is about the carotid sheath. The next is the buccopharyngeal fascia. What is buccopharyngeal fascia and what is the pharyngobasilar fascia? These two fascia are present in the upper part of the neck, near the pharynx. If we see the pharynx, The pharynx is bounded by the constrictor muscles. These muscles are present in a circular manner. One muscle is present over the other muscle, superior, middle and inferior constrictor muscles. The superior constrictor is the uppermost muscle of the pharynx, and the buccopharyngeal fascia, it externally covers the superior constrictor muscle and then extends on the superficial aspect of the buccinator muscle. And the next is the pharyngobasilar fascia. In very simple words, pharyngobasilar, from the pharynx to the base of the skull. It extends from the pharynx, means superior constrictor, to the base of the skull. It lies deep to the pharyngeal muscles and it is thickened between the upper border of the superior constrictor and the base of the skull. If we see the figure, we can understand this is the section through the oral cavity, but this is not the sagittal section. We can say that it is a parasagittal section. So this is the tonsil. This section is not passing through the median plane, it is passing little bit on the right side. So that's why we can see the tonsil here in this section. Okay, this is the tongue, this is the soft palate, here will be the hard palate. So whole is the oral cavity. Just try to understand how the section is. This is the whole is the oral cavity, this is the tongue, and this is the soft palate, here will be the hard palate, etc. But this section is not passing through the center, it is passing just on the right side of the median plane, parasagittal section, so that we can see the tonsil. So in this section we can see here the posteriorly is the superior constrictor muscle. This muscle is superior constrictor. So we'll mark it. This muscle is superior constrictor muscle, and this is the superior constrictor muscle. Okay, whole muscle from here to here is the superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx. Now this superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx, if we see the buccopharyngeal fascia, it is present superficial to the superior constrictor muscle, and also it covers the superficial part of the buccinator muscle. If we go deep to the superior constrictor muscle, this fascia is the pharyngobasilar fascia. This was the buccopharyngeal fascia, which is present superficial to the superior constrictor. Deep to the superior constrictor, buccopharyngeal fascia, and the buccopharyngeal fascia, the uppermost part, it is thickened up to the base of the skull. It is thickened. Okay, so this is the buccopharyngeal fascia. So this is all about the layers of the deep cervical fascia. So which are the layers of the deep cervical fascia? From the superficial is the investing layer, then the pretracheal layer, prevertebral layer, carotid sheath, buccopharyngeal fascia, and pharyngobasilar fascia. Now if we see some of the applied aspects of the deep cervical fascia, one important applied aspect of the deep cervical fascia is that it splits to enclose the parotid gland. And that's why the superficial layer in that region which covers the parotid gland is called as parotid fascia. So again we can see this figure, parotid fascia. Here, this fascia is called as parotid fascia. Okay, shall we mark it? This fascia is called as parotid fascia. This fascia is thickened and it is unyielding in nature. Unyielding in nature means what? It is not stretchable. That's why if there is some swelling in the parotid gland, that swelling is not able to occupy the space due to this parotid fascia, and that's why the swelling becomes painful. The parotid swellings are painful due to unyielding nature of the parotid fascia. Then one more thing we have seen, that this is the stylomandibular ligament. We'll mark it by, again green color we'll mark it, stylomandibular ligament. This is the stylomandibular ligament. right? This is pierced by the external carotid artery. So if when we are dissecting the parotid gland, if when we are operating over the parotid gland, this external carotid artery, if it is damaged, it can retract through this stylomandibular ligament and it may cause severe bleeding. So this caution should be taken. So we should not damage or cut the external carotid artery while operating the parotid gland. We have also seen that the thyroid gland is suspended by the suspensory ligament, and that is the which is attached to the cricoid cartilage. So here again in this figure also we can see that this is the thyroid gland over here, this is the pretracheal fascia, and this is the cricoid cartilage. So this part which forms the suspensory ligament, we will mark this part. This is the thyroid gland and this is the cricoid cartilage. This part, it forms the suspensory ligament, and due to that the thyroid gland or the swellings of the thyroid gland move with the deglutition. Now one of the most important thing, that prevertebral layer, this is the prevertebral layer, this is the prevertebral fascia which is present just in front of the vertebral column, and here are the prevertebral muscles. This prevertebral fascia covers the prevertebral muscles. Now if there is some infection deep to this prevertebral fascia, like for example these are the spines, these are the vertebrae, if there is tuberculosis of the cervical spine, cervical vertebrae, then the pus comes out and it cannot go beyond the prevertebral fascia, it is limited. So it spreads downwards and it may reach to the superior mediastinum, up to the fourth cervical vertebra it can reach. But if we see that this prevertebral fascia, it covers the posterior triangle. Now again we will go to that figure where it covers the posterior triangle here. So this prevertebral fascia covers the posterior triangle. This is the posterior triangle. We will mark the posterior triangle, mark the boundaries of the posterior triangle. So these are the boundaries of the posterior triangle here. This is the posterior triangle, and the floor of this triangle is formed by the pretracheal fascia, prevertebral fascia. Now in the posterior triangle, the brachial plexus and the subclavian artery, they come out of this pretracheal fascia and they enter the axilla, and they carry the sheath of this prevertebral fascia in the form of the axillary sheath. So the pus can go track along the axillary sheath in the axilla. So these are the few applied aspects of the deep cervical fascia, and in the examination you may be asked to write short note on the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia or pretracheal fascia and some applied aspects. So this is all about the deep cervical fascia of the neck. So if you are having any queries, any doubt, you can ask, you can put on the personal messages you can put, and shortly we'll start with the live classes with the Medviz app. By that time, as per the instructions, go to the topic, you should watch the videos, you should have the textbook with you. First see the textbook, then watch the video, try to understand. You can pause the video, refer to the textbook, refer to the diagrams. If you are having bones, you can refer to the bones, and in this way try to cover up the syllabus. And once you come back, we will complete the second internal assessment practical examination, and then we will start the syllabus, we will continue the syllabus. Thank you.